I'm glad we're in the Welcome Center because my job is to welcome you. So, welcome. My name is Scott Bush, class of '86. I'm the president of the Alumni Association Board of Directors, which is the sponsor of this evening's program. I want to start by thanking everyone who's here. I certainly want to thank Preslav Mantchev, class of 2017, who came forward back in November for the original idea for this program based on something he observed being done at the University of Illinois Law School. We like the idea. I also want to thank Dirk Behrens, 87, vice president of the association, who's in the back of the room. Dirk was an early advocate of this idea, having formerly been with the American Bar Association, saw the value of this, went to Warren, pitched the idea, and I want to thank Warren very much for you and your entire team giving this the green light. Preslav then took it and ran with it. I want to thank our panelists, all of whom you'll be meeting momentarily. This is the first time in many years that the Alumni Association Board of Directors has sponsored a career panel through the Hart Career Center. We hope this will be the first of more to come, and so we especially appreciate the interest of everyone here in the room tonight by attending this panel. Finally, I want to thank the members of the Alumni Association Board of Directors who are present. Will you please stand so that the students who are here can see who you are? Derek, I see you back there. Dr. Fraser. All right. Beth, hello. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much to the Alumni Association Board of Directors who helped with this. And I'd like to introduce our good friend to all of us, Warren Kistner. Warren. Thank you, Scott.
Well, good evening, everybody. What I'd like to share, and I'm going to keep this short, is just the fact that the Hart Career Center for many years has turned to our alumni for support in so many different ways, providing internship and employment opportunities for our students and for fellow alumni, but also participating in programs. We routinely have alumni joining us for panels as individual speakers. And my hope in talking with Scott and Dirk and other members of the alumni board is that we can formalize this a little bit more, arrange things in a way so that we know we're going to have perhaps 1-2 programs each year, and I think our students will benefit from that. It's wonderful to have a panel with professionals. It's even better to have a panel with professionals that are Titans. So that being said, I am going to, I'd like to actually extend thanks to Preslav for his wonderful work here, certainly to our entire panel for making the trip down over whatever direction you came, and to Patrick Zajac, who is our event planning coordinator and did a lot of heavy lifting in putting this evening's program together and worked very closely with Preslav. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Preslav.
Absolutely. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Scott, everyone else for being here. Thank you, Patrick, and your graphic design team and everyone else in your office. You guys did a great job, and most importantly, thank all of you guys for being here, because if it wasn't for you guys, everyone would just be listening to me babble on and on and on. I mean, come on, let's be real. No one wants to do that. And no one wants to hear me talk for that long. So let's get started, shall we? Let's stay on the topic of Illinois Wesleyan to start. We can work our way forward, I guess, chronologically. And that being said, let's explain our current practice areas to the non-lawyers in the room. And how did Illinois Wesleyan get you on that track? Or how did they kind of like foster your interest towards your current practice area, or the practice area that we want to practice, like me and Jamal?
I guess I'll start. Hello, I'm Kira West. I graduated from Illinois Wesleyan in 1986. I have a federal criminal defense practice in Washington, D.C. I practice in some federal courts in Virginia and a couple in Maryland, but the majority of my practice is in D.C. I was a piano major when I came to Wesleyan. I was a voice minor. I sang in the collegiate choir. And I'm a trial lawyer, although I argued in the D.C. circuit twice this month. so I'm a little tired, but that's why I'm a trial lawyer, because I got on stage and did piano work. I was in the collegiate choir and performed. So I have colleagues that throw up before they go give an argument. I'm serious. And they get really nervous at trial, and I just go in and say, okay, this is a Chopin prelude. I'm going to lay it out here, and I'm done. So that's how Wesleyan prepared me for my legal career. I thought going to graduate school in piano would be very difficult because the competition is really stiff. And so I talked to my advisor, Jerry Israel, Dr. Israel's fabulous, and he said, well, you know, you're taking Spanish, you like history, you like philosophy, why don't you think about law school? And I said, okay. So they arranged for me to have an internship in the state's attorney's office when I was a senior here, and I worked on a murder case, and I was like, wow, this is cool. So I went to law school. I went to Drake because I was going to go to law school in Chicago, but an Illinois Wesleyan graduate, Dave McCord, was a professor at Drake, and he came to Wesleyan to recruit students. So that's why I went to Drake. All these Illinois Wesleyan connections. And I got a very good education. I started practicing law in Houston, Texas. I was an assistant first I was a law clerk for a federal judge. Then I was an assistant U.S. attorney. I tried a lot of criminal cases. And then I became a criminal defense lawyer in 2004.
Let's keep going,
All
Don.
right. My name's David Darling. I graduated in 1979. I think I'm the old guy in the group here. I had always wanted to be a lawyer, so from the get-go, when I was very young, I had my goals to become a lawyer. So Wesleyan did not necessarily contribute to the decision, but the decision to attend Wesleyan was a big part of that. I was an all-state athlete and was recruited for athletic scholarships. And due to some bad knees and bad ankles, I decided I wanted to concentrate on the academics maybe more so than the sports. And I still was able to participate in sports here, but the academics is really what drew me to Illinois Wesleyan, because I knew that would help me get to law school and accomplish the goals that I wanted. While I was here, I had the opportunity to study a semester in Costa Rica. And since I wasn't really qualified for the program, I had a wonderful Spanish professor that wrote a letter of recommendation for someone, not me, but I mean, it was for me, but it didn't really reflect who I was or what I had done. And based on Illinois Wesleyan's reputation and that letter of recommendation, I was accepted to the program. And as a result of that, I'm fluent in Spanish, which I utilize in my practice. And because of that, I've had the opportunity to rub elbows with several Costa Rican presidents. I've done some work with the Costa Rican consuls general. But my practice is primarily in construction litigation. I do civil defense work for some international construction and engineering companies. I got into that because I liked some of the people that I was working with at some of these companies. They liked my work product. And I had done roofing work for 9 years during the summers as a way of paying for this wonderful college and my law school. So I had a little construction background too. It's a wonderful position to be in. I'm a shareholder at our firm, so I'm part of it. It's a business we have to run. So I get to practice law, and I also get to run a business, which sometimes is a pain in the butt because it takes away from the practice of law. But it's a wonderful, honorable profession, and you'll hear a lot about that from these people because they're all wonderful attorneys.
You finish right as I'll reach for it. So, yeah, class of 17, graduated, last May, so almost a year now, wow. How did Wesleyan prepare me? When I started here, I was studying physics and physics, philosophy double. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with it, but law was kind of always an option. I was like, well, would I like to be an engineer, maybe patent litigation. I didn't stick with physics, so no patent litigation. I did add marketing, and with that, I added one of my interests, which is intellectual property law, which is there's usually people with a hard science background, but that's what that is. There's like the soft IP area, which is copyrights and trademarks. And Chicago Kent, when I did the law school process, Chicago Kent actually is like really has like a Wesleyan's reputation, but like for intellectual property law. So I was like, cool. It's a small school, really plugged in the Chicagoland area, and they offer a cool program which is called like the 1L Your Way thing. 1L Your Way certificate program, which lets you your first year take elective courses in the area in which you're thinking about specializing. So that seemed really cool. I still wasn't really sure if I wanted to do intellectual property, so I went there because they let you take it like basically right away and decide if you want to stick with it. Really like trademark law, you guys should look into it. It's really fun. Not really, but it is. And then another way that Wesleyan prepared me, I was pretty involved with different things around here. And in all this involvement, I kind of developed somewhat of a passion for, advocating for people that can't advocate for themselves, be that diversity and inclusion or just broad areas of civil rights and everything. And along with that, I'm also trying to do the public interest certification, which is a cool thing that Chicago can also let you do. So I'm kind of like juggling between public interest or IP, but I won't stop, I promise. Even though I'm not a practicing attorney, I have an internship this summer, which I got through the school. They're really good, have a great career office up there as well, so cool. I'm actually plugging CK, plot twist. Yeah, the internship, sorry. It's in a public interest area and it's with the Public Guardian's Office, and it's basically you help defend or represent children in like domestic violence situations. And returning to my passion from earlier, that was one of the things I was like, well, civil litigation, somewhere like public interest, somewhere in there, I'll find a home at some point. But yeah.
I'm Danielle Kays, and I work at Seyfarth Shaw, based out of Chicago. What's kind of unique, well, it's very unique about my career is that I live here in Bloomington. I work from home in Bloomington, but my office is based out of Chicago. And while that's becoming more prevalent, I think, for other companies to have remote work policies, it's pretty unheard of for a lawyer. So I used to work in Chicago before I moved here, and I'll get to that. But I knew I wanted to be a lawyer pretty early on. Junior high lawyers came and talked to us on career day, and I watched TV and saw some really sexy lawyer shows. I'm like, yeah, that looks fun. Just not at all what it's like. I mean, it's really cool still. But so that always intrigued me, and I changed my mind a little bit here and there. I came to Wesleyan actually because they had a great pre-med program, and that's what I applied to be a bio major. Decided quickly that wasn't the case, and was pretty much geared towards going to law school all 4 years. So while I pretty much knew that was my career path, Wesleyan was awesome because of the internships that I had. I had some very valuable ones. Two with she's now the retired chief judge of McLean County Court in town, Judge Robb, who was a Wesleyan alum. And then also I interned for Judge Prawl. So I got to see a wide variety of things. And that kind of solidified that I always knew I wanted to be a litigator. I also had an internship at a large law firm in Chicago for 2 summers, where I got to kind of see how that worked and get my feet wet that way. So then I went to University of Illinois for law school and moved up to Chicago for 8 years. Always was a litigator. My career path, or my practice area, kind of varied. I actually tried a case the very first day after I was sworn in, and lost, but I won after that. I had a good record, but so I tried a lot of cases, and I kind of eventually began working on more complex work. I represented companies in mass tort defense, and then represented franchisors. And then when we decided to move here, I began working for Seyfarth Shaw in their employment department, and I defend companies in employment litigation. I will give a slight plug too. U of I was wonderful. One thing that I love doing too is that I will teach occasionally. So I teach trial ad at Notre Dame once or twice a year. They have an intensive program. Chicago Penn also has that program, and I was involved in that room in Chicago and also coached their trial team, which was a really great experience for, if you want to be a litigator, it kind of throws you in and you learn that presentation and just what it takes.
I'm Hannah Griffin. I graduated in 2012 with a degree in political science. I learned pretty early on during my Wesleyan career that I wanted to go on to law school. One of the things that Illinois Wesleyan did to prepare me, I guess, was I was able to take a couple classes with practicing attorneys in Bloomington. So I took a common law class and also a mock trial class. And after I took those, I was like, I'm so interested in this. This is exactly what I want to do. And I guess the other things would be I tried to focus on building the strengths I could bring to my future practice. So I love to write. So I wrote for the Argus for a long time and then became the news editor. I was a staff writer with our communications office here at IWU, and I also took a marketing position or internship with Purdue Financial down the street. So yeah, this is it for preparation.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. And I guess to shed a little more light on myself, unlike Hannah, I came in here without absolutely any idea of what law school was or whether I'd want to do law school or not. However, my classes here definitely kind of opened up my eyes to it, and especially international law with Dr. Monroe really motivated me to attend law school with the possibility of doing international law. Because when I was visiting here as a junior, I sat down with Dr. Reiner over in the Davidson room, I think Dr. Kim as well, and they're like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, hopefully diplomacy. And at that point in time, that's all I knew. It was one word. And afterwards, I realized that, diplomacy is actually the crafting of international law. And to craft international law, you have to be an international lawyer. Of course, since then, I've realized that international law is a very narrow field. And to be practical, I'm trying to do actually environmental due diligence when it comes to private equity, which is real estate transactions. And I'm hoping that that can essentially just give me knowledge about different countries' environmental laws while I work with different private clients, whether it be corporations or banks investing, whether it be people trying to invest across the world. And I'd say, like going into law school, Wesleyan really helped my writing abilities. You guys are going to write a lot in law school if you decide to attend it. More than you ever will here, but I think Wesleyan gives you about as good of a preparation as can be. Poli-sci definitely gave me the ability to read really verbose, 1800s style English, which you'll see a lot of rulings and a lot of opinions. Just kind of go on and on and on and on like that, and you got to sift through it. And you kind of help me with logic. In practicing the problems over and over again. And I think most importantly, Wesleyan really made me a well-rounded person. I go to U of I like Danielle, and over there, of course, it's a big school, and on the way to the law building every day, I walk past a lot of undergrads. And without kind of, getting to stereotypes too much, you really see how over at the big school, people kind of filter, they kind of go into their own groups, and I think that's different than Wesleyan. I think here, even though you have your own friends, you really kind of appreciate that small community, and you get to know a lot of different people and kind of learn from them. And I guess that being said, the application process before you get into law school is a big thing. So, Hannah, let's start with you this time. And would you tell us, what are some takeaways that you got from the law school process, or the law school application process, that you still carry with you in practice today? And then we can work our way back.
It's been a few years now.
Sorry.
I'll skip the answer on this.
I don't remember.
So for better or for worse, you are kind of judged by pretty much your your GPA and your LSAT score. So you can there's actually you can go onto a website and plug in your information and kind of see where you would fall and what ranking of school you could get into. So that's a little different than maybe an undergrad application where we're looking at the whole person. And not to say that a law school won't take into consideration your diversity of background or your unique professional background or something like that. But it really is a factor of your GPA and your LSAT score. So get good grades and stuff like that if you want to go to law school.
Yeah. I unfortunately completely agree with that, but it's good to know, right? But the one thing, if your grades are not where they want to be, if you work hard and do really great on the LSAT, you can sometimes explain your grades. For example, if you gradually increased, or if there was an area maybe that you started off majoring in and it just wasn't for you. But once you found the right major, you had better grades. I think that you can explain those things and just bust your butt and study for the LSAT and just do the best you can on that because it really matters. But I also will say, I recall I submitted letters of recommendation from one of the judges I was interning with, and that was wonderful. I was so, just honored that he would do that for me. I don't know that it did anything, but if there's a school you have to craft your heart on, it's worth a try to do those extra things.
All right. Yeah, I agree with everything they just said. I think everybody's gonna say that. GPA matters, but I can attest, you don't have the top GPA. Having a nice LSAT score helps, as well as get involved if you're not involved. If you are involved, you have to, personal statements are really important. I'll say that. That's what I'm trying to say. Figure out a way to intermix it all into your personal statement, as well as letters of recommendation help. So I agree with that. I had some pretty sweet letters of recommendation. I don't think those didn't help me, because I definitely think they would. And yeah, study early for the LSAT. Don't wait for the last minute. And a takeaway that I didn't realize ahead of time, it's expensive. The application process is expensive. So if you're someone who, coming into undergrad, you just shotgun applications, you won't do that. Yeah, it's just not realistic. So the LSAT's expensive, and you have to sign up for the online software. That's pretty expensive. And then each application is $60 for the app, plus another $60 for the report your stuff. Long story short, it gets expensive. So take the time to narrow down your selections earlier. Not to say you shouldn't apply, because I also applied to breach schools, middle schools, low schools. That's smart. But yeah, so look into where you want to apply and start saving for it if you need to.
Did you guys take an LSAT class?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
I took it in Chicago. I took the train every day to downtown. Took that class, took the train home.
I took 2 trains today. I'm done for the year. I can't do it anymore.
But I mean, it's imperative. You have to do it. Oh no, that was Barbary. See how that was Barbie. But I think I did also take an LSAT class.
I did not take an LSAT class, but I got a book that I would go through myself and then took the test. And I can tell you, kind of playing off what you talked about, Illinois Wesleyan's liberal arts education is a big plus, and their academic reputation. Because when I only applied to a couple of schools because of what Jamal was talking about, the money. I didn't have a whole lot of money coming out of here. So I focused on where I wanted to be and the type of law I wanted to practice and the location I could get into based on GPA and your LSAT scores. But I got to the John Marshall Law School and was talking to some people that had been conditionally accepted, and their scores and their GPA were comparable to what I had, but they weren't accepted right away. And I think that part of that was their academic reputation of the school, their activities that they were participating in were not as strong as those that I had from Illinois Wesleyan. So that is a big factor, I think.
I had two professors from here write me letters of recommendation, which were very strong. And I even remember what Dr. Coulter, Larry Coulter, God rest his soul, I was all upset because he said in the letter that I had a tendency to shoot from the hip, which is still true today. And I was like, what's he talking about? What's he talking about? But it was really, I still have that letter, and I'm really thankful that he did that. And so I think my point is they were from two different disciplines, schools here at Wesleyan. So I think if you can have professors from different schools, not two from the business school and two from the music school, you should branch out a little bit.
And also, what you've heard tonight, hopefully, you don't have to be a political science major or pre-law or anything like that. We had music majors. I went to school, my top graduating student from John Marshall was actually a Spanish major. She taught Spanish in high school for a while and then went to law school because she was losing her hearing, and so her teaching abilities were understood. And you touched on it, Danielle, too. I think that you don't have to be in pre-law and focus only on that. Your liberal arts education will give you the ability to get into law if that's what you really want to do, and it will be accepted.
And be successful at it.
Right.
And just to go with that, as a graduating philosophy major, graduated alumni. Philosophy courses, they really help with the getting comfortable reading like dense materials and like finding logical arguments, and also the writing intensiveness of most of the courses help you work on your, I guess, writing of like writing a long dense material, which is what a lot of law school is. And then this is to the prep class. I didn't take an LSAT prep class because most of the books are just like, oh, intense reading. Like I said, philosophy major, didn't want to do that. But symbolic logic, which is a course that a lot of people hate and they take as weighted out of math.
That's great.
You take symbolic logic. It was one of my favorite classes, Professor Piley. Probably the class I did the best in. I did the best in that class out of any of my classes here. I loved it, and when LSAT came around and it was like logic names and that's what everybody's freaking out about, I was able to just refer back to some of my symbolic logic like knowledge. So yeah, take that if you don't want to take it.
Do you guys know what the LSAT is? Okay, so everyone knows. Like,
There's a good question.
Yeah, excellent. So it's not unlike like the SATs or like the bar exam. It's not a knowledge-based test. So it's like testing your like ability to like comprehend like long pieces of reading or like analyze problems and like do logic games and stuff like that.
A lot of aptitude stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just like quickness and just like being able to like read a lot and just like know what it means in a short amount of time. But thank you, Jamal, and thank you, Dave, for bringing up the cost of the application process. That's something I forgot, but I think it's something that continues to play a part even after like you enter law school, because the networking is such a big thing after that, and these costs, they keep piling up, whether it's study aids, or it's whether it's bar courses, or whether it's just meeting people and going different places to meet people. Like that adds up, and that's something that I wish I would have been more aware of, because it definitely is something you got to keep an eye out for. And that being said, I'd say the process, at least on my end, taught me how to be early with stuff. Schools like it when you apply early. You'll get a much more favorable decision if you apply early. I know for some of the seniors, that might be said and done, but for the younger people, definitely apply early. This is a very blunt way of saying it, but schools like to play games if you apply late. They really do. And definitely happened to me. Still, guess worked out well. And the other thing that I guess I'd say as important is the personal statement. You know, the personal statement's kind of overlooked when it comes to the LSAT and the GPA because, you know, it is kind of some, you know, more of a subjective thing. You know, there isn't a number to it. But that's like your guys' first kind of test at personal branding and, you know, telling your story. And as you start, you know, working and being employed, like the firms' customers, or if it's a government entity, you know, their constituents, you know, they care about that. Of course, you guys are taught to question everything, so you kind of look past the, you know, the story and everything, and you say, you know, why do we have to do this? You know, this is pointless. But, you know, other people, they actually care. It stands out. And that's a big thing when you're looking for jobs and when you're presenting your firm or someone down the road. And that all goes back to being a well-rounded person. We had like a customer satisfaction, I guess, topic that we discussed in law school in our like practice class. And most customers, when they look at law firms or when they choose, you know, who to, you know, present their issues to, they don't really look at school or whether a person teaches or not. They look at if it's someone they can connect with. You know, they like empathy, they like trust. It's a lot of subjective stuff that you can build and you will build. Just got to start early. And to kind of go on to the next question, what is the biggest misconception that you had about law school, or the biggest adjustment that we've had to make? Here, let's start with you.
I studied a lot harder in law school than I did here. I mean, it was my only focus, and I treated it like a job. I mean, I was fortunate that I had hours and hours and hours in a practice room by myself, because that's what I did in law school. Hours and hours and hours by myself in the library. And it paid off. So that was a big adjustment. I was very social here at Illinois Wesleyan. Scott, the buddy here, sang in the collegiate choir with me.
Amen. Yeah.
Amen.
Good job.
And it was just very social, and I was not, in my first semester, I just studied. That's all I did. So that was a big adjustment.
Oh yeah, same here.
Right.
But like the personal branding that I just talked about was an adjustment for me. But also, like the studying a lot is not the only thing you'll do. And people told me you'll study a lot. That's like the first thing you hear, but it's so much more than that. You know, there'll be people coming in for lunch from firms or from government agencies. There's student groups. There's applications. And my goodness, you know, when I was a junior, I was like just going crazy because I applied to 8 places. You know, this past year I applied to 20, and some of my classmates applied to more. So it really is the biggest juggling act that you'll ever do. Just be prepared for it, or like at least expect it a little bit. And here, I know you mentioned the job part of it. When I was going in, people told me treat it like a 9-to-5 job, and
Law school?
yeah, I
What a
just
dream.
right. You know, that,
Great.
9 to 9 job.
Yeah, 9 to 9.
at least. But what I will say is, if from 9 to 5 you treat law school like a job, and you're always just trying to like focus and like change gears really quickly and go straight from class to like studying and just being efficient with your time, it's going to help out a lot more, right?
You may have actually heard that from me, because that was one of my lines, that you should treat law school as if it's like a job, that you can't dilly-dally about anything, because once you get behind, you're behind. Because it is an awful lot of reading, and it's a daily thing. You've got classes Monday, and Tuesday you've got to present all those hundreds of pages that you read Monday. And whereas here, it's not that we sloughed off when we were at Wesleyan, but there was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 18, and Tuesday, Thursday. But in law school, you're going to be hitting classes one day right after another, and you're getting hundreds and hundreds of pages of assignment to read and brief or whatever. So it's a lot of reading and a lot of preparation. And if you treat it as a job and focus on getting stuff done before you have a good day, going out for a drink or a meal, you'll be better off.
This is true of being in law school, and my job right now is you gotta take care of yourself. Back then, I was a big runner, so I ran almost every day, and that was really important for me to do that, get my mind away. And I had a real unusual situation. I got a great scholarship from Drake, and part of it was I had free room and board. So I lived in a dorm. This is great, undergraduates. So I lived on like the top floor with other graduate business students, but I was the only law student. So there were older women, and it was fun, but at the same time, when I went to run, that was my personal time. So I'd be really, and even now, like before I came tonight, I swam at the hotel. I just have to take care of myself, because when you don't, you get bogged down with work, it's a bad road.
Absolutely, I agree with that, and definitely find some sort of like pastime or hobby that does not involve alcohol. I know it's funny, but like alcohol abuse is a big thing that.
I shouldn't laugh. He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right.
And undergrad kind of conditions you in a different way. I mean, it's different. Undergrad is just different. The expectations are different. The atmosphere is different. And it just, you have to know that you're in a different kind of school and the expectations are different. And yeah, I've had friends that have had other kinds of health problems because, they weren't eating too well. They were eating a lot of fast food, trying to catch up on readings. And we're not trying to throw all these horror stories at you guys to scare you away. The point is that you really got to take care of yourself once you start law school, because it really is a mental and physical test.
No question.
I'll say one huge misconception that I had, and it's a very oxymoronic statement to say this, how miserable yet how fun it will be. Reading is miserable. The back-to-back reading, I'm in the middle of that right now. I left class to come here, I'm going right back. I got class. Reading and presenting the information, getting cold called, it's terrifying. You know what a cold call is? Anybody? No?
Oh yeah, you can't pass.
Socratic method.
It's like the Socratic method, the way you have small classes here and it's usually, around the table talk. Well, in law school, well, at least currently, I don't know how they did it back in the day.
That's how they did it.
So if they say case number 17, hey, Mike, you're on a hot seat. You're on a hot seat for the rest of this presentation.
You are on that.
Until I know everything about what you know about this. And if you mess up, they're not afraid to tell you no. But, so that's very intimidating for a lot of people.
If you, when I was back in the day, if you passed, I never passed all 3 years, I'm so proud of that. If you passed twice in a class, it affected your grade.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, you got like half of, it's like instead of getting a C, you got a C minus.
It's an absence.
It was serious.
They treat it as an absence. Like if you can't answer the question when they ask you, you get like 4 in one of my classes, and after that, like your grade starts going down.
Yeah.
Did they still make you stand when you were the first victim?
I had one of my classes did.
Yeah.
And then
That's old school.
the good side of that, how I said it was oxymoronic, it's fun. If you're a competitive person, I did sport. I love competition. It's just, and I guess this goes back to the other side. It's very competitive. One, you don't want to be embarrassed by the teacher, and you want the first thing out of your mouth to sound smart. It's not gonna. Everybody, you think you're smart like the first year, everybody's wrong. You're always wrong, no matter what, just accept that. But trying to be right, that competitive feeling is pretty nice. And then, along with the same oxymoronicness, everybody else loves competition. And even if you're an overachiever in undergrad, which I definitely wasn't, if you're an overachiever here, when you get there, you're surrounded by other overachievers. And you're graded on a curve. I've never been graded on a curve before. That's very strange. Still getting used to it, but basically, if it's curved to a B, like only the top 5% of your class will get an A, and that's how our curve is. And there's 67 people in the class, so it's 5 to 10%. So even on the high end of that 10%, that's 7 kids get an A, and you're all competing for the same A. So yeah, it's competitive, but it's still fun. And then you'll also have a nice set of camaraderie. You'll meet a nice set of friends. People in your section you'll study with. You'll clash with some people, you'll go along with some people. That's life. But yeah, no. At the end of the day, you're still competing with the person next to you. So, I don't know, it's fun.
And I'm glad you brought that up because, I mean, it's hard, right? We're all saying it's hard and this is how you adjust. But I remember, back when I was looking to go into law school and select my career path, I talked to some lawyers who weren't happy. I was like, oh my gosh, like do I want to be a lawyer? But I was very social in college too, and I don't regret that. That was wonderful. But I was the same way. I was like, all right, this is time to grow up and I'm going to be a lawyer, and I'm taking law school seriously. But it was enjoyable. I did enjoy law school. I really love being a lawyer. It's hard, it's stressful, but it's challenging. You're always being challenged, and it's always something new. I also love to compete. I love to win. And so you get that. You get that out of your career. You don't always win, right? I told you I didn't. But so there are really great things. But it's true, it's 3 years of your life. And I know that, after every stage of your life, you're like, oh, I'm going to miss that, and this is going to be harder, and it's going to change. But it's worth it. Put the work in, and it'll pay off because you'll have more opportunities in your career, and you'll have a satisfying career in life. And that's really exciting. But, I agree, take care of yourself. I started running a ton in law school too, because that's my stress relief, and I still do. And it's a good, healthy thing, right? But, so just know, it's all good. If you are looking at a legal career, go for it and accept the challenge and do it.
Law school and being a lawyer takes a lot of grit, that is true. But I totally agree that you just get this camaraderie where everyone's in the trenches together, is trying to get through it, and it ends up being really fun. And just to pick up on something that Preslav said, that it is a different environment than undergrad. You have to remember that it's a professional school, and the people who are your peers someday, could be giving you business through referrals, or they go in house and they become your client. So it's important to treat people well. So although it is, depending on the school, it can be really cutthroat. Notre Dame wasn't, people were competitive and worked really hard, but we don't rank, so there wasn't really that cutthroat competition feel for me, at least. But if someone gets sick and can't make lecture, give them your notes. It's the right thing to do, and not that that's why you do it, but one day they might remember that and they might have to. And then one other thing that's different, I think, that I wasn't expecting, transition from undergrad to law school was you get 1 grade for your first year classes. So things loosen up and get different, second and third year, based on the kind of different seminars and specific practice areas that you're interested in learning about. But every 1L in America takes the exact same classes, and it's usually a Socratic method, and there's 1 grade, your final. And that's an incredible amount of pressure. So that's that first semester of oh my God, 3 hours is all I get for the entire semester. That's a lot of pressure, but it gets easier every time you do it.
I'm going to add just one thing. It's probably I don't think it's irrelevant, but there's a book that someone told me to read when I was going into law school. I met my husband in college freshman year, and so I made him read it as well, and he did, and he still talks about the Socratic method. But I don't remember when it was written. It was a while ago by Scott Turow. It's called 1L.
Yeah, it was mandatory for us.
Yeah, and it's great. It kind of gives you an idea of what's coming.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah, for mentioning helping people. That actually reminds me of one thing that I just kind of did not expect. When I was even touring law schools, was there's people who had to get their group members given notes because they had a child who's being born. And one thing you'll realize in law school, again, because it's a professional school, is that there's people that are a lot of different ages and backgrounds that you'll interact with, and you'll all be nerding out, and it'll be great. But yeah, it's something to expect, and it's something that I think, again, Wesleyan prepares you really well for, just being a more well-rounded person. With that, I see that time's kind of ticking away, so let's open it up for questions. Mr. Wambacher, what's the first question?
So kind of keep it short. So with like kind of the state of Illinois' like future kind of looking very kind of bleak at times, and especially a lot of the big firms in Chicago going from schools such as Notre Dame, U of I, Northwestern University of Chicago, or even the University of Iowa. Is Illinois a state that sometimes that for future attorneys, kids that are going to law school should be kind of eyeing, be kind of careful about committing to, especially since they prefer where you go to law school, kind of where you want to end up living-wise?
I went to John Marshall Law School in Chicago for the primary reason is I knew I wanted to be in Chicago and practice in that city. The second major reason was it was very affordable for me. It was one of the cheapest law schools in the U.S. at the time, but it had a great reputation. A lot of judges, a lot of state's attorneys, a lot of public defenders all came out of John Marshall, trial people. But I went to that school with the focus that I was going to stay in Chicago. Knowing what we know now, you have to really think about that. The state has a lot of people that are questioning whether they want to stay in the state, let alone practice law. And I think if you go to law school wherever, you could take the bar in any state you want to live. So you aren't married to staying in Illinois if you go to law school. Right.
Yeah, and I think U of I mean, I'm not sure where they're ranking now, but I know that it was attractive to me, and of course the state's circumstances are different now, but it was attractive to me because it was, ranked highly, and so that's transferable. It's not necessarily that you have to stay in Illinois if you go to University of Illinois. I think that's probably the same way. It's true, there are some city schools that you have a great chance, probably greater chance of getting a job in the city, and I think that's still the case than others. I think Notre Dame is a great, you guys have probably, if you're looking at law school, you can look at the rankings and you have to decide, cost versus rankings and everything, what's best for you and which is the best fit.
And what you want to do, because a lot of schools like John Marshall is not producing a lot of people going into corporate law and making the big money first, second year. Chicago, Kent's the same way, but they're producing very good attorneys. It's just you're not going to be in the corporate law setting. U of I, Harvard, Stanford, Michigan, those are the schools that are producing the corporate lawyers.
I may not be practicing, obviously I'm still in law school, and also probably wouldn't be able to tell you the market now compared to before, but one of the, as I said earlier, one of the things that drew me to Chicago Kent, which is a school in the city, similar to how John Marshall is, the network reminds me of Wesleyan a lot. And the same way this alumni office has great connections, and Wesleyan is like just basically plugged. I don't think of another way to say it. That's one of the reasons I chose Kent. And even if you're not at like the big school or like whatever, it has a lot of connections, and they make sure that they keep those connections into the market open. So if you are considering like where do you want to practice and look at the future health of it, you also should consider the school itself and how their reputation and how well connected they are, if they stay in contact with their alumni, yada yada, like so forth.
And for that placement statistics, I looked at that definitely when I was looking at schools, so that's something to be aware of.
There's definitely certain law schools that are feeder schools for different geographic areas, but for the top 20 law schools, they tend to have a really strong national network where you can utilize that to place wherever you want to. Working for a big law firm like Foley, I don't think I'm working for any clients right now that are based in Illinois. So the particular politics of the state won't necessarily affect your practice if your clients are nationwide.
Yeah, I agree with what Han says, and I'd say, depending on where you go to school, some schools have really strong connections in a specific city, others have more of a regional network. If you want to get out of Illinois, the cost of living concern is real, especially around Chicago. And if you don't have family over there that can help you out, I totally understand. And If you want to get out of the state, though, I'd say you've got to commit hard to it, because nothing scares away law firms, I've learned, more than people who are kind of ambivalent or who they're unsure that they can, retain for a set amount of years. I know I was talking to a U of I alumni a few actually weeks ago, and she had one internship actually during undergrad in Georgia while she was applying to a Chicago firm, and they asked her about it. I was applying to a position in St. Louis earlier this spring for this summer, and they asked me about my address and my connections to St. Louis. And if you really want to get out of state and practice somewhere else, I'd say, choose a school somewhere there, or a school over here that has a bigger regional focus. And you got to do your 1L internship, out of state. And you probably also have to get an address over there, and you really got to sell the fact that you want to practice in that other spot. Because your resume, even going back to freshman year of undergrad, what they describe it as is a rhetorical document down to the location of your internships. The fact that you went here at Wesleyan says that you're comfortable with Illinois, but it doesn't really speak about other parts of the country. Say if you studied abroad, or if you did something in another state, that kind of helps potential employers feel more comfortable with taking you in.
So I couldn't afford to live in Chicago, which is how I got to Texas. I had an offer from a federal judge in Chicago, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't afford to live here. I had an aunt that lived in Houston, and I applied to every federal judge in Texas, and I was very fortunate. I got a great job. And when I was in law school, before that, I spent the summers in Houston working at law firms. And I was still I still took the Illinois bar, and I was gonna go to a Chicago law firm until I took my clerkship, and I was like, man, it doesn't snow here? I'm in. And I loved Texas. That was a fabulous place to practice law. And so the best advice I got in law school from one of my professors was pick the place, because everybody was going to all different places. And he said, pick the place you want to be, and then find a job. So if you want to go to LA or some small town in Iowa, great. Just pick where you want to be happy where you live.
Yeah, because as Hannah said, a lot of your clients are not even going to be in Illinois. They may do business in Illinois, or their connection may be through your law firm in Illinois, but that doesn't mean that they're here.
Anyone else? Other questions?
I have a question, Preslav. I just want to comment and co-sign everything the six of you said. Vicariously, we had a mom of a newly minted attorney who attended John Marshall and just passed the bar. So I remember, because I was there.
I want to mention one more thing. I was very, very fortunate. I had 5 white federal judges offer me jobs in Texas. I went to clerk for the only African-American federal judge in the whole state. And I did it because that was outside my sphere. I'm from Morris, Illinois, this teeny little town. And it was I still love and revere this man, Judge Hoyt. He taught me so much about humanity and differences and how we're not that different. And that helped me. I work in Washington, D.C. That's where I pick juries. That helped me tremendously. So get out of your comfort zone. Be with people that are different than you and don't believe exactly what you believe. And it's going to help your clients get the best result when you have all this experience of people that are different from you. That's just what I feel.
And you know what else, Kira? The Wesleyan experience. My lawyer had 1 year, his freshman year here at Wesleyan. And the thing about WU is that it is a family. It's a community.
Right.
But it values the individual so very much. And when you leave here, you just are just so confident in what you can do, what you can attain, and that makes a difference as well.
I agree.
I just want to follow up, Kira. You talked about your clerkship, and I don't know how much time we have. I never did that, but and I wasn't really sure, if wanted to do that. I wanted to start practicing. Looking back, I mean, everybody who did it had a very valuable experience. It sets you up really well for future jobs.
Law firms like recruit you. I mean, it was, so if you can get a job for clerking for a federal judge, I couldn't afford to then go from the district court to the Fifth Circuit, which is what I should have done. I should have just gone and done a circuit clerkship, but I went to the U.S. Attorney's office instead. I just didn't want to be poor anymore. I'm still poor. I went to the U.S. Attorney's office, but I mean, really poor. I think when I was a law clerk, we made $23,000 a year. That was 1989. And first year, my friends who were at Sullivan and Cromwell and Mayor Brown and Platt, they were making $90,000 and they got a $10,000 bonus, and I'm scratching on $23,000. I said, I can't do that for another year.
And also, much like Wesleyan, when you come here and you declare a major and then you switch, as Jamal was saying, you have ideas of what you want to do, but you will possibly switch your focus even in law school. Because I had done that and didn't think that I would be working defending construction and engineering companies, but it'll happen.
And I switched during my career, and I'm very happy where I've landed each time. So, you know, it's life, and you make it, you know, what you want, and you learn, and you can do that.
And good on what Kira said, definitely apply to judicial clerkships because they're in the fall. If you get those during winter break, you cannot worry about any applications in the spring. It's awesome. I've worried about applications far too long in the spring, and definitely say I'm jealous of my husband because he got one of those. Seeing it's the top of the hour, right? Any last advice for our students? Hannah, let's start with you. Last advice.
The market is bouncing back, like with the rest of the country in 2008. The legal market kind of dropped off, and the big classes that law firms were hiring just weren't happening anymore. It's coming back, but still, you know, think long and hard before you even make the jump, because it is an expensive investment. It's a great investment. I love what I do. I work with really smart people. It's like high stakes and fast moving, and I love it. But just make sure, because it is a big investment.
I completely agree with that. It is a big investment, but I also tell people it's worth it. It's scary. I was on Wesleyan. I was on loans at Wesleyan, and I had loans to get me through law school, and I paid those off a long time ago, and it's worth it. It was hard to pay them off. I'm not pretending that it's easy, and law school is not for everybody, but take the risk if you're interested, and it's worth it.
Last piece of advice, in a very cheesy way to end this. After you get through the application process and you're waiting on your results and everything, you get it, and you get accepted, whatever. When your school starts, don't be one of those kids that try to change who you are. And I say that very strongly. It doesn't work. I'd say adjust who you are, fix bad habits, yes. But if you're a social person, you don't have to become a recluse, unless, it's better for you. Some people it works for oh, really, that was my problem? I could just stay at home and study and I'm better now? But people disappear for too long, or they try to become too involved, and you see it change, and they struggle because now everything's completely changed, the elements completely changed. So you can still be involved if you're involved. And if you're the type of person that doesn't get involved, stick with what you are. Law school's hard enough. You don't want to have to pretend to be something that you're not.
That's great advice, and I can tell you from my own personal experience, and I mentioned this to Kira, I think. When I was in law school, I had a very good group of friends. I played basketball with them, I hung out with them. Because I was so poor, we found a bar that had $2 pitchers of beer, and they had corn dogs or whatever, back in the day. And that's where I would eat my best meal, was chili or something that they would have at the bar. But aside from that, there were a lot of people that I did not like, because I think that they had changed, or they became people that maybe they didn't even like, I don't know. But opened my eyes, and I had a lot of people drop out because they thought, I don't want to be associated with these people in the profession. I stuck to it because, as they said, I knew it was a big expense, and I wanted to see it through, but I didn't know if I was going to practice right away, and I didn't. But then, as I got more involved with my career, I decided to get into it and stay into it, and it has been worthwhile. I can honestly say that there are more good people practicing law and people that you deal with than there are bad. Lawyers have a bad reputation, but I think that's more of a standard joke and not something that you'll encounter in real life. They're decent, honorable people, and even though we don't do handshake deals anymore, everything's got to be in writing, I's dotted and T's crossed. The profession can still be that way in a lot of ways. So it's a good, honorable profession, but if it's not something that you're married to or you're really engaged in, you may step back and think about it, because for me it was not as expensive as it is right now. It's a huge investment right now. People are coming out of school with huge debts. And if you're getting a job in a corporate or a big law firm, it'll pay for itself. But if, like we started out, I wasn't making that kind of money that I could pay off the debt that people are incurring now. So it all has to be lined up. If you're going to go to a good school with a focus on a big firm or corporate law, then maybe the debt payment won't be much of a sacrifice. But if you go to a school that doesn't put you in a $150,000 a year job, you may have a little bit more of a struggle to pay off your debts. So those are considerations that you should make and try to lay out how you want it to progress.
I have a couple of points. Minor Myers had this saying, and I don't know what it was, but it was something like "go out and do well." You know what I got a card that said that, and I framed it. It's in my office. I should know what it says. I represent mostly indigent people, and I get a great satisfaction. It's so much better helping a heroin addict get her hair done, than putting somebody in prison for life. So if you're a person that wants to help people who are can't advocate for themselves, it makes you feel good at the end of the day. My other point for people your age is there are no stupid questions. Ask all the questions you can. Send me an email. Go to Warren, say, I need help with this, I don't understand it. Or if you're in law school and you're really struggling, go to your priest or minister or the social people at your school and reach out. There's people that'll help you when it gets really tough.
Utilize the Wesleyan network. That's something that I've been promoting for years, and Warren can attest to that. We're here to help, and believe me, if I don't have somebody that I can help you with, I will send you to somebody else at another firm. And we've had a lot of success in that little network. So we aren't quite Notre Dame yet, but that's what I've always strived to have Illinois Wesleyan be like Notre Dame, where you say, hey, you went to Wesleyan? Oh, come on in. And Notre Dame does that. So don't be afraid to ask, ever.
Yeah, don't be afraid to, and network is such it was a word I was afraid of coming out of law school, and I didn't want to be like a pest or seem annoying. But people, if you're a member of the Alumni family or a member of your law school family, like people genuinely like helping other people. People like to talk about themselves and tell you about their experience. So don't be afraid to, I got my 1L job because like a family friend that I hadn't, a friend of the family that I hadn't seen since I was like 5 years old, like offered me a job because they called her out. Like, it was totally nerve wracking, but that's why no one's going to be mad if you ask for help.
I completely agree. That's the same thing with my 1L jobs. And I just had a Wesleyan student, I think Preslav maybe directed them to me. But he contacted me and just asked me a bunch of questions, and I was so happy to help. And I connected him with some other Wesleyan alums who were who practiced in the area that he was interested in. And I loved it. And I was very hesitant to sound stupid when I contacted people, but you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Dave said, we're all here to help. I mean, that's why we are here. And you might sound, stupid the first couple times because you have just started this compared to people who've been doing this for decades. You will ask, some questions that you kind of, just say later on, like, what was I thinking, and this and that. But that's how it starts. And from what I've heard, people are just so busy that they forget, just like we forget sometimes. And just ask. But before that, while you're still at Wesleyan, of course, do well. Don't drop the ball. Maintain good relationships with your professors and stuff, and be dependable so they can get you good recommendations and they can open up the door for you. Get internships. Work experience always is important. And have fun. Seriously, have fun. When you're coming back from the law library at midnight and you've just read a case about, a child that got burned from a faulty heater, and the court is assessing the damages for third-degree burns, and you're tired, and you're going to have to be up early the next morning. You're not going to be thinking about the grades that you got, and that's not going to be getting you through at that point. Law school makes everyone feel dumb. It's supposed to, but the memories that you make with your friends right now, those are the kinds of things that get you through. They really do. So have fun, and thank you for coming.
And if anybody ever has any questions, just contact us one way or the other.
All right.
Absolutely.